of May, and it's great to see so many people here, so thank you all for coming. My name's Kira, and I'm a member of the 1 Million Women and Girls campaign. We're a not-for-profit organisation made up of a large group of women from all walks of life who want local politicians and decision makers to listen to women and girls in our region and focus on the issues that are important to them. Local elections matter, they matter to women and girls. Local councils make decisions which affect us every day and shape our lives and the lives of over 1 million women and girls living in the North East. We want their voices to be heard, and thank you all for being here tonight to help make that happen as well. We're all volunteers, doing this in our allegedly and mythical spare time. The planning for these events has taken place mostly online, with different women joining from home, from work, late nights in the office, and also from car parks, waiting to pick kids up from football and stuff like that. So we try very hard to get things right, but please bear with us if something isn't how you'd like it to be tonight. If you do need anything during the event, just find one of our wonderful team, who you can see in their fantastic t-shirts. Before I go any further, I do of course need to tell you about the fire alarm and toilets and things like that. So we're not expecting any alarms. If we do hear them, we can leave by the door over there, or over there where you came in, and we'll congregate over there by the chapel lane. Toilets are at the back, so women on the right and men on the left. It's great to see you all here this evening. When you booked your ticket, we asked you to let us know what your question you wanted to ask and whether you wanted to ask it yourself. We had loads of questions, more than we have time to get through tonight. So we looked at those questions to see what themes and issues were important to people. And we've tried to group them together. And if you're asking a question tonight, we've already let people know who's going to be asking questions. So if you haven't had an email from us, you can sit back and relax and just enjoy the evening. And we hope that most of you, even if your exact question wasn't chosen, you will find that we're covering the areas that are important to you. For this debate, very few people who put forward a question actually felt able to ask it themselves, which is a bit different to the other debates that we've been holding. So whilst all the questions this evening are from people present tonight, many of them will be asked on their behalf by one of our volunteers. I'd also like to add that the candidates haven't seen the questions in advance. It's a little bit scripted, sorry guys. We first started our campaign for women and girls' voices to be heard during the mayoral elections in 2024, and we asked all the mayoral candidates and all the local authorities in the combined authority area to sign up to our pledges, which you can see on our banner over there and on our screens. In Sunderland, we're really pleased that the council has signed up to the pledges, and at the end of the debate this evening, our chair will ask all the candidates if they are prepared to sign up to those same pledges and to commit to working with us on these issues in the future. If you have any questions about the campaign, just ask any of us wearing these t-shirts. If you'd like to get involved in the future or just join our mailing list, you can sign up or get in touch on our website. There's also details on all the leaflets on all of your chairs. So that's everything from me. Let's get on with the debate. It's my great pleasure to introduce our fantastic chair for this event, Jackie Hodgson. Jackie is an experienced senior journalist, formerly at the BBC, and we are delighted that she is going to chair this debate. So thank you, and over to you, Jackie.
Well, thank you very much, and hello everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. I have never been in this building before. I've driven past it loads of times and had no idea it was quite so beautiful inside. So I've had a quick look round. I think the stained glass is fantastic. So I would urge you at the end just to take a minute to have a look. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I did look very, very hard, and I couldn't find a stained glass window with Donald Trump in it anywhere. So before we get cracking, I'm going to give you a few facts about the election in Sunderland, which I thought would be helpful for you to have in mind during this evening. You may already know it, but the person sitting next to you doesn't necessarily. And I think it's important that we understand the context of what you're voting for. So, and I'm sure my colleagues here will correct me if I get this wrong. There are 75 seats up for grabs on the council. That is the whole of the council. Normally in Sunderland, only a third of councillors are elected in one go. But this time, all of the seats are being contested because of changes in local ward boundaries. So, if you're good at maths, you'll have worked out that to control the council, a single party needs to win 38 seats. Currently, the council is made up of 48 Labour members, 12 Lib Dems, 9 Conservatives, 4 Independents, 1 Green, and there is a current vacancy. The council has been Labour-controlled, I think, since the last local government reorganisation in 1974. Alison, have I got that right? Great, okay. So there are lots of local issues that are generating headlines. Council tax rise, which is 4.5%. There's the rising cost of social care in the city, alongside everyday issues about bin collection, rubbish on the streets and things like that. But what we wanted to discover is what are the issues that are the most important to you, and hear from some of the people here who are hoping that you'll back their party. Although, just to reiterate, although we've shared areas of questions, nobody has seen the exact questions. So, in a minute, we're going to hear from everybody for 2 minutes each, just to tell you who they are, why they want to do this, which some people might question why you'd want to do this, and what their connections are really with the contest. But first of all, I just want to remind everybody that we want this conversation to be informed and to be civilised. And so to that end, we're asking that everybody abides by the Joe Cox Civility Code. That's audience and participants here. So please do be civil and constructive and respectful, even when you disagree, however passionately your views may be held. I have absolutely no objection, though, to applauding, cheering, and even laughing, actually, so that's fine. So we're going to get cracking, and I've been as fair as possible with this, and I've got all the panellists in alphabetical order. They're going to tell you who they are and who they represent and why they're here. So we're going to start with Fiona Miller at the far end there.
Is it on? Yes, it is. Thank you. So my name's Fiona Miller. I have been a councillor for 15 years in Washington East, which, because of the boundary changes, will be becoming Washington South. I represent my constituents, my residents, and I follow my heart with them, and I listen to them, and we have some serious issues in the area and in the ward as such. So, as Washington people see themselves as Washington, and I listen to what they want in Washington, along with Sunderland, because we are part of Sunderland City Council. I've worked tirelessly, trying to make sure that my residents get the best from their communities. That's with bin collections, adult services, children's services, especially adult services now, because my son's autistic, and we have gone through the mill with him over the years, and I really do stand up for my residents when they have issues. I was going to have something else to say today, but I'm going to tell you I've just been with a lady in one part of my new ward, and she is about to be made homeless through a Section 21. Unfortunately for her, she's a lone parent, and she has a support dog, and because of that, unfortunately, they're going to kick her out. She's gone through hell in her life as a woman, and that's why I do what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. And I think I should say that you're representing the Green Party.
I am indeed. Sorry, I am the Green Party. I do apologise.
Okay, thank you. We're going to come to Anthony next, who's representing Conservative Party.
Thank you very much. Oh, mine isn't on. Is this on? It is on. I'm Anthony Mullen. I'm the leader of the Conservative group on the council. I've been a councillor for High Barnes and Humbledon for 8 years. I'm standing in the new Tunstall and Humbledon ward, which cuts my current ward directly in half. And my reason for coming and doing this tonight is that all of our parties, with the exception of mine nationally, are led by men. All of our parties locally in some form are led by men. And my view is, when I saw the agenda for the types of things we were going to be asked tonight, that if men are in positions of leadership and policy-making decisions, then women's issues should matter to us as well. And the kinds of policies that we come up with, So I wrote my group's manifesto, I wrote our budget. The kinds of things that you're asking about and interested in should be things that I'm concerned with. So rather than asking a female candidate from my party to come, I took the decision that as the leader who writes the manifesto and comes up with the policies, I should also be accountable for those policies and here to change them in light of what you say. In response to the question, why do I do what I do, sometimes I question what pleasure a person can get from reporting other people's dog mess or filling in potholes, but actually the wider spirit of public service, of helping people, and of being there to champion people who, as Fiona was just alluding to, can't do that themselves, and sometimes need help to navigate the bureaucracy of a local council, is incredibly important. And that's why I've been doing it for 8 years, started when I was 26, and want to continue in Tunstall and Humbledon, principally because it's where I'm from, but it's also a part of the city that I know incredibly well, know the issues well, and want to be on top of those for another 4 years to come.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Right, next up is Elizabeth for the Liberal Democrats.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I think I'm the only person here who is not a candidate in the election because I'm actually from Durham, Councillor Elizabeth Scott, and I'm here representing the Liberal Democrats tonight because they weren't able to field anybody as they're all out probably delivering leaflets as we speak. I have been very involved for 9 years as a county councillor. I was involved in the establishment of NECA, so I've seen sort of what's gone on in the region for a long time. I became a county councillor when my children were fairly young, and do you know, I genuinely got the bug because I was sick of hearing myself complaining about things, and I thought I am a person who can do something in my local community, so I took the steps necessary, got very involved, and as I say, I've been a councillor now for 9 years. And I want young girls and young women to know that their voice is very important, equally as important as anybody else's voice, and we have to work really, really hard at making that happen. I would love politics to be a safe space for women. I don't believe it is a safe space at this point in time, but we all have to work really hard to try and achieve that goal. So that's one of my missions and one of the things that I focus on in my role.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And last but not least, Donna for Reform UK.
Hello. It's very easy why I became involved, community, and the people and the businesses that are in it. I've always been a part of the community, a very proud, active part in the community, and the people I speak to daily don't feel as though they have a voice. Now, there's an old adage that says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I want to be at that table and giving the people that really, truly do have a voice about what they need, not what people think they need. So that's why I became involved.
Thank you very much, Donna. And now, huge apologies, I can't do the alphabet. Alison for the Labour Party, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. I'm Alison Smith. I'm a ward councillor for Red House Ward, which is on the north side of the river. And I'm the Cabinet Member for Corporate Services and Equalities, which is a really important issue for me. I'm very family orientated, very community orientated, and those of you who have known me a long time know that I've got more than 40 years voluntary service in working with girls and young women, hearing their voices week after week, hearing about the world they live in, which was different to the world I've experienced, gave me the impetus to move forward to do this. I wanted to make a difference for them and for all young people in Sunderland. One of the first tasks that I took upon in my cabinet role was to sign up to the 1 Million Women and Girls movement and their ethos and develop a strategic framework with partners across the city. And I see quite a few of those partners here today, lovely to see Nicola and women, Wearside Women in Need, people who have come, who were involved in the preparation of that, so that we can provide equality across whole ranges of areas for the young people of Sunderland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, so let's crack on. And the first question now comes from Megan. Megan around? Hi, Megan. Do you want to give us your question?
Hiya. My question is, as a young mum, there is very little specifically for me in the local area, and I was just wondering how this could be improved.
What would you like to see, Megan?
So I know there's like family hubs and stuff around like that, but that actually isn't that many. You've got maybe 2 or 3 in the Sunderland area. You've got 1 in Washington, and that's as far as I would travel. So I don't actually have that much like support around me. And when I can go, I do try and go. But again, there's not much there when I can go, and there isn't very many hubs around in the general scheme of things as well.
Okay, Alison, what are the family hubs for anyone who's not aware, and why aren't there more of them?
Thank you. There are 5 hubs currently, 1 in each area of the city, and they were reintroduced a number of years ago, starting in Hetton, which was one of our biggest hubs. They look after families from birth through to 18 or 25 years of age if they have special needs. They provide every service that could possibly be needed by those families at that time, as well as recreational time and activities. We only have 5 at the moment because it's taken a number of years to develop them. I remember being there when Hetton opened, and it was the big shining light. But since then, I have seen another 4 spring up: Hendon, Northside, Washington, Coalfields. So there is something accessible for everybody. But in addition to that, we do have lots of community centres across the city that do provide activities for young mums. Some don't, some do. And it's about having that map, that guidelines to where they are and how you can get engaged and meet with other young people.
Okay, Fiona, what could a green agenda bring for young mums particularly?
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Megan, for the question. Basically, for me, and I'm a mum, I've got 2 children, and I've been there, done that, and I know how difficult it is to find somewhere to go with your kids. I'm really, I would say, fortunate in Washington. We have got a lot of facilities. We've got a lot of good facilities that do focus on the community. So there's a lot of community, what we say, cohesion within Washington. So we have Mickey's Place, which is down in Sulgrave. They put on loads of activities for the community and for children. We have Baby's the Cafe, which is in Concord, right next to the bus station. I can give you Harrington CA. We've got St George Church. So there's, I would say, in every village, apart from, and this is going to be honest at the moment, is Barmston. We have got something, but we're looking that Barmston will have something again. It used to be called the Forage, along with a food bank in there as well. Every contact counts as far as I'm concerned, and the Green Party see that, and it's important that we get to speak to people. It may not just be about activities for your children, it may be the services that you're trying to access, especially if it's anything to do with SEND. So as the Green Party candidate here, I really, really support having good community services and for young children and for mothers.
Thank you. Donna, as everybody will get to find out, I've done lots of homework reading up on everybody's plans and policies, and one that struck me from Reform UK is a policy called Help British People Have Children, which I've never seen anywhere before, and I thought was interesting. And it says, we will reduce the financial pressures that stop working people starting families, support parents, and remove policies that make having children unaffordable. So how do you think some of that would help, Megan?
I think the system is run at the moment by a lot of voluntary places, which need a lot more funding. I can only speak for me. I I love children. I'm very big on children. I know how hard it is, especially during the summer holidays and the schools when when they're off. It costs a fortune. That's why I also run Houghtonleigh Spring Residence, and we do Kids in the Park, fully funded by the community that know how hard it is for you and for people that have young children. Easter, we gave out 500 free Easter eggs. We gave out 350 hot dogs. It was we had the field open where there was children's shows there, entertainment. We put our feet on the ground and we make it happen. And we are told it is genuinely appreciated by the parents and the families that come to us. That should be funded by it should be funded by the council. It should be little things like that. I'm saying little things. We can't all afford to take our kids to Flamingo Land. You know yourself, if you go to McDonald's for the day, you're looking at 60 quid by the time you've fed the kids and they want a drink and they want this and they want that. We need to be making things like that accessible for our families. We do. And that's where local politics and funding comes into it.
I read that Child Poverty Action says 32% of children living in poverty in Sunderland Central and roughly the same in Houghton and Sunderland. And that's about 6,750 children in one area alone. I wonder, Anthony, whether those kind of figures make you think more funding should be found to put into supporting care for young mums and their families.
I think so. A few years ago, I did I can't actually see the question, sorry, but I am addressing it. I did a large-scale review of early years provision in the southwest of England when I worked at a university down there. And their early years provision was the worst in the country, with additional challenges because of not just poverty, as you mentioned, but because of no rural bus services and inability to get to the new family hubs, which came out of the Leadsom Best Start review. So service was provided, but people couldn't actually get to it to access it. I think the best way to help any family in poverty is for adults to have jobs and to have the support around that. But of course, in order to access jobs, what parents need is childcare. And there has been much said about the expansion of childcare, the additional hours, but childcare providers are struggling with that because the amount that the government funds per hour is not sufficient for private provision to actually meet its own costs. So it's about £5 per hour, but the average cost of looking after a child per hour is more like £7 per hour. So childcare providers are then having to go back to parents who are in the kind of situation you were describing and ask them to pay for things like nappies or their children's meals. So the expansion of childcare has been tokenistic. It needs to be funded at the £7.50 per head, not the £5 per head rate. And that would then allow people to take up the jobs that they can't because they don't have childcare. If I could just make a point in relation to what Donna said as well, within each of our wards and within each of our areas, we do have funding available for that kind of thing. So in Barnes, for example, we have funded groups for younger children and for parents and families. So if there is something that you think is missing in your area, I would contact your councillors and ask them to fund it because the money is there to do it based on an area's need.
Can I just come back to you about the funding for childcare? This week, Kemi Badenoch said Conservatives would reinstate the two-child benefit cap and spend the money on defence instead. Given that everybody's talked about needing more funding, is that a sensible way forward?
I think it is. I would keep it at 2 children. First of all, because it doesn't help everyone who wants to start a family who have no children. And second of all, because no matter how important any other issue is, defence is the principal issue. That has to be funded. It's pointless talking about any other matter of public policy if we can't defend ourselves. It is the principal area of what government should do is to defend the realm. And if we are in a situation like we're in at the minute, where our warships break down on the way to defend a base and we have the French defending us, that is not sustainable.
Elizabeth, a wider Lib Dem policy on provision for young families. What is the policy and what could Megan expect from a Lib Dem authority?
Well, in talking to colleagues here in Wearside, I think there is a general feeling that there has been a hollowing out of community services, and it's compounded, I think, as well by transport problems. I think Anthony's alluded to that. I was very involved in the £1 and £2 bus fares that have come through the region, which I think are so important. But it's also about our local councillors using neighbourhood budget, using local resources to make sure that there are things on people's doorsteps. It isn't always practical. When I had 3 children under 3 at one point, it isn't always practical to get on a bus. Sometimes you just need to be able to walk to your local church hall or to a community centre. So it's about utilising resources at that hyper-local level and making sure that local representatives are talking to their communities so that they know exactly what it is that communities are seeking, not just imagining from the civic centre or county hall or whatever, that they know what the communities are seeking. You've got to be out there, and that's what Liberal Democrats do very well. They get out on the ground and talk to people.
Okay. Megan, have you heard anything which made you think, oh, that's what I'd really like? Is there anything that you have heard tonight that has given you some optimism?
I think it's all been really great, so thank you everyone for sort of answering my question in your own ways. I think in regard to Lib Dem there, with the bus thing, I think it is sometimes I can't afford it sometimes when you've done all your shopping for the month and you've done your rent and everything like that. The rent, my bus fare, a single is £2.50 just for me. Obviously my child gets on free because he's under 1, but it's still that's a £5 journey even if I'm just going up the road. So for me, it's not always possible to get a bus like you say. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you found some of that useful. Thank you for your question. Right, the next question is going to be put by Carla.
Hi. Sunderland is a living wage city. Why does this matter to women? And would your party support Sunderland continuing to be a living wage city and the council continuing to pay the real living wage?
Thank you very much. Did everybody hear that? Yeah? Okay, we're going to start with a quiz. So I'm going to find out if each of our platform members knows how much the real living wage is. So, Donna, what is it?
It's 12 something, or the real living wage. I know there's a 63 pence difference between the real living wage and the living wage. And I think it's about £12 something.
Okay, I'll give you the answer in a minute.
Yeah.
Next.
Oh, well, I think it's £13 something.
The real one.
Yeah, the real living wage.
Yeah.
I think, let's say £13.40.
Okay, Anthony?
I think I can remember a poster in City Hall that says £13.50.
Okay, next.
Yes, I agree, £13 plus.
And last of all?
And definitely £13.50 because
Wow.
I was part of it when it came through, yes.
It may have gone up by 5p since I last looked, but I thought it was 13.45, but I may have looked at the wrong thing. Anyway, roughly speaking, you roughly all got it right. About 10,000 people in this city are paid the real living wage, according to the council. That includes staff at Gen 2 and the university. There are other private sector organisations that have also signed up to it. So let's start with Alison. Why do you think it's important for women in particular that the council pays the real living wage?
Thank you very much. I think it's essential that we and our partners and any contractors that we work with pay this living wage. There are lots of factors that prevent women from getting into the jobs that they possibly want to do. They have caring responsibilities that we've already mentioned. You have children or elderly parents. You may not have had the opportunity of the full education that you wish to take up, again, for financial purposes, but lots of things that stop women being in that kind of employment. We've got to make the employment attractive. We've got to make it pay. You have to be able to live on what you earn, and as far as I'm concerned, have a little bit over for pleasure on top of that. It's not sufficient just to exist. There is a big partnership across the city of companies along with the council who subscribe to the living wage programme, and we are moving ahead continually with the companies that do that. And I referred to the contractors that we use as a council. That is also part of the remit that goes out to them, asking do they pay the real living wage before they are awarded a contract. Women shouldn't have to take a lower rate of pay than any man, and I'm delighted that the council itself is an equal pay employer, is an equal pay employer, and they are paid for the job you do, not for what gender you belong to.
The council is really strapped for cash, though, so this is an area where potentially could save some money.
Not an option for me. Not an option at all. There are other areas that could be cut if it was necessary. This year we've been able to bring in a budget without any cuts to services at all, and very pleased with that. We've been able to do that for several years now, and the living wage would be a very, very bottom of the list before I would even consider it.
Okay. Elizabeth, what's the Lib Dem position on the real living wage?
Yes, firmly support the real living wage, but I do know that colleagues in Sunderland have been vocal about concerns about the significant disparity between the top paid jobs and the much lower down jobs. And of course, we know that more women than men are in those lower skilled, lower paid jobs generally. So that, you know, just by virtue of the nature of the workforce means that women are getting paid less. So that is a real concern, I think, for us.
I think the Chief Executive earns just over £200,000 a year. Are you suggesting that that should be reduced to...
Absolutely not. I am not suggesting that for 1 minute. And in fact, in Durham, Reform came in and said that they would slash all of these ludicrous wages. They haven't slashed any of those wages, and in fact they've appointed 2 people on increased wages at that level. So no, I do not agree with that. They're carrying massive responsibilities.
Donna, if it helped more women...
Absolutely. To be quite frank, how a chief exec of Sunderland, although it's a good city and a big city, earns more than the Prime Minister cannot be justified. It just can't. So to be honest, I think it all needs re-looking at.
Okay, let's just pull it back to women. Anthony, nationally, the Conservatives don't support the real living wage, but the lesser £12.71, which is the national minimum wage. Why doesn't the Conservative Party want to see people paid the real living wage?
I suspect it's because they're trying to make a national budget balance, but locally in our budget, I would agree with what Alison just said. We managed to bring our rate of council tax down to 1.7% in our budget offering, and we did that without touching the real living wage. But another point Alison mentioned there was that no woman should be paid less than a man, and yet the gender pay gap in Sunderland Council has gone up to 5.29%. It's increased year on year, and the reason that we're given for that is that more women are in roles that are lower skilled, that they're in more care-orientated roles, and that they tend to take more time off for caring, for childcare, or they tend to work part-time. But when you then go into places like SCAS, which is Sunderland Care and Support, you find that even in that section of that arm's length body, which is a section of the council, women are still paid lower than men. In Together for Children, women are still paid lower than men. So at every level of the council, within each of its arm's length organisations, women always seem to come out worse. And the gender pay gap, in addition to what was just said about the top paid and the lowest paid, the gap between men and women has been increasing for 3 years. It's documented, there's a diagnosis of why it's happening, but nothing's actually done about it.
Alison, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, thank you very much. I would defend the Chief Executive. He carries a huge range of responsibilities across the city and works very long, hard hours and is very dedicated to what he does. I am on the board of SCAS with the care and support, and we do have differences. It does happen. However, I'm sorry, I've lost my thread.
Oh, what the gender pay gap?
The gender pay gap. Because women are in the lower skilled jobs, and for some of the reasons that I've already mentioned, they are affected by national negotiated pay rises. The pay rises for local authorities are dealt with by area and nationally, and is often a percentage pay rise per year rather than a fixed amount of money. If we could accommodate and come to agreement with trade unions on a fixed amount of cash, that disparity would be much less. But if it's a percentage rise, obviously the chief exec's 2 or 3% rise is going to be much greater than the cleaner's 3% rise. And that's the area that needs to be addressed.
Fiona, we haven't asked you. Where do you stand on how you help women make the most of the financial opportunities of the real living wage? Do you think it's the right way forward?
Importantly, it definitely is. For me, I've been in skilled work. I'm lucky because I got a degree and then I got a master's. A lot of women do not get that opportunity to go to university and find it difficult because of childcare or caring responsibilities, whereupon you can obviously hit a better pay scale. My worry is obviously the unions can have a voice. Work Voice Pay is Unite, and I'm a member of Unite still as a union member. And as an ex-union rep, I have fought long and hard for women to get what they need, and having a voice and empowering people to turn around and say, look, this is not good enough. I'm working all the hours I get to try and keep my family together. And I think it's really important that women have that opportunity to have that voice and be able to live, and I mean live, and I've said this to Sir Keir Starmer, by the way, personally, and not exist. And that was part of the thing that when I looked at the Manifesto for Health for the City, it's also impacting on women's mental health as well, and how they support their family or be able to buy a property. I think it's about times 12%, if I remember now, of your wages. Who's going to be finding a deposit like that? I have a daughter who is a solicitor who can't even find a deposit for her house, so you can understand she's on quite a decent wage, but not enough to buy a property. And we've got people below that. I think it's so important that we pay the correct amount for people, and it's more so for women, because I think women are at the bottom because of the type of jobs that they end up doing, and that shouldn't be the case. Everybody should be able to be what they want to be.
One last intervention from me, and then another quick round the table. So you've done Nigel Farage and Richard Tice from your party have suggested a potential freeze or reduction in the minimum wage for younger workers, which would obviously include younger women. Would you agree with that?
I have to say I do agree with it, because younger people need the experience first. And if the minimum wage is too high, our businessmen and our local traders and this, that and other can't afford to take them on at a living wage. They need to sort of have the experience and work up like we did in the past.
So where would you say, what age would you say the real living wage should start to be enforced?
Probably 20, 21, yeah.
And you think that would make a difference?
I do. And I think it's something to aspire to. 17-year-olds, I want to be there, I want to be earning that much, but to realise and recognise that the experience is needed.
Thank you. So let's just do a quick round the table. Or we haven't got a table, but round the panel. Would you pull Sunderland out of the real living wage?
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
Definitely not.
And definitely not.
Well, I guess that's that's some agreement, isn't it, there on something which is actually quite controversial. So we're going to move on to something else which is equally controversial. but very, very interesting. And it's a question which is going to be put by Amy. Oh yeah, thanks Amy. And I want you to listen quite carefully to the question.
The riots of 2024 had and continue to have an enormous and disproportionate impact on women and children from minoritised communities in our city, with many still feeling unsafe. What will you do to promote community cohesion across the city?
Okay. By January of last year, 2025, there were 84 arrests which were made following the riots. 30 people had already pleaded guilty to a range of offences and more followed. The damage was substantial. So let's start with Donna and address the specifics of the question, Donna. What would Reform UK do to make women and children from minority communities in Sunderland feel safer and promote community cohesion?
On a personal level, I hosted a Unity in the Community event. After that, it was abhorrent what happened. There needs to be something looked into it, why it happened.
Why do you think it happened?
Why do I think it happened? Because I think a lot of people felt as though they weren't being listened to. I really do. And took it upon themselves, wrongly, to do a vocal. I think it was a protest about a lot of things, and I think there was a protest against the police. I think it was an excuse to have a go at the police, quite frankly. But moving forward, we get around the table together. We're all part of the community. And especially women, I think, have a lot of power in to do this. We get round the table, we share culture, we share stories, we share food, and that's where proper cohesion. We've all got lots of things in common. We all love our family, we all want the best for our family. It's all well and good, people above here talking about what's needed. It happens in the community, and that's where reform would make it happen.
So do you think that some of the language used by Mr. Farage encourages people to be suspicious or hostile towards minority groups and make them feel unsafe?
He's addressing an issue that's very relevant in today. Does it make people, if they feel it's directed to them, I can understand. I really can understand. But those issues need addressing. There's lots of issues that are relevant. Can you be specific? What do you think needs addressing? Well, women are unsafe, full stop. Women in everybody's society, not just minority women, but a lot of other women feel unsafe as well. So that's what we need addressing, the reasons why people feel unsafe.
And you don't think that any of it is attributed towards the language towards asylum seekers, for example, that is used by your party?
We're trying to address the issue, and you can't address it by staying silent.
Alison, do you want to respond to that? And why do you think, what can be done to address the issue of women in minorities feeling unsafe?
Thank you very much. This is a topic that I'm extremely passionate about. It fits in with everything else that I stand for within politics. And in developing the budget this year, we put aside £1.2 million to work on social cohesion over the coming year across all communities. Immediately after the troubles we had in the city, the council brought in a group called Belong, a totally independent reviewing group. And they went around the city talking to the people, not to us, not to councillors, not to officers. They went to community centres They went to churches, they went to pensioner groups, they went to the Ageing Well group, you name it, any group within Sunderland, and asked their opinions on why they thought the troubles had happened and what we could do about them. That information has all been collated, put together, so we have a very clear view of how the residents feel about the whole situation. The safer partnerships have been developed further as a result of this information. We had a group in Southwick on the north side, a SARA project, whereby police officers, social workers, youth workers, everybody came together to work together to develop and improve the community. That was so successful, it's been rolled out into the city centre and into the coalfields area. In the last 12 months, from those individual hubs, there are spokes have gone out into individual wards. So my ward on the north side has a spoke now with the SARA hub at Southwick, where we can get immediate response through wardens, through community officers, through the police, social work, whatever we need. It's there on the ground, what people were asking for. Community cohesion comes from the community. We are here to lead and to help them do that. But we couldn't do it without the very valuable work that's done by the voluntary sector in Sunderland. We have an amazing voluntary sector who come together regularly, who meet regularly, who discuss issues across the city. They happen in all parts of the city and they share information. And one of the most recent things that I've been involved with, and I see there are others here tonight who've also been involved, on the north side, we asked the voluntary sector to look at youth work for us, because we feel there are a lot of disenfranchised young men, not their own fault, some of it from social media, others from people that they are mixing with, opinions they hear that are not necessarily valid on fact. And they did research, and up towards 1,000 young people were asked for their opinion on how we could involve them in our society and be part of the community. And overwhelmingly, all they asked for was a safe, warm space to go when they're not at home. So they want to be out there with their friends, they want to be doing things, they don't necessarily want to be sitting in gaming all the time. They want to do lots of other activities, but they want it somewhere safe and warm. And we have people in this room tonight who provide that across our communities. And by bringing the younger people, the older people together, and the antisocial behaviour reducing, we are bringing social cohesion into the city. Thank you.
Fiona, I've read that Liberal Democrat policy includes pushing for an end to what's described as hostile environment policies. What do you mean by that?
I'm not Lib Dem.
Oh, no, I'm no. God, I think I should have gone to bed sooner. No. Yeah.
As a Green Party member, we're not whipped, and we speak for our residents. We talk to them and we communicate, and that's important. I would say the riots were caused because of a lack of communication, social isolation, poverty, pressure on public services, including policing, decline in trust in democratic institutions, weaker family ties, and fear of crime. And to be honest, a lot of disinformation. And that was caused by social media. And unfortunately, some of these platforms, if you give them oxygen, this is possibly part of the cause. I was going to say that there is other things that sit and bubble under the surface of any community. And unfortunately, the ugly side rose, and that was just very sad for the city. I am finding where I have residents who are BAME community, they are very difficult in the sense of getting to what they want, as that seems to be, they shut their doors when they get in with the children and they just don't want to go back out again. They're frightened. That's not cohesion. We're not supporting people. We should be listening to these people and we should be identifying what they need along with everyone else. And it's really important. I mean, I've ran Half Plus, and Gateshead were really keen, as Alison's been talking about getting boys involved more. And that's why the Metro Centre, I don't know if you've noticed next to Boots, that is one of the places that young men can go and speak to people. I think the problem is we don't listen, and we don't listen enough. And if we do listen, we need to then communicate what people need. We used to have a thing called Let's Talk in the council. It seems to have disappeared for some reason, and that was very informative. As a woman, I find it frightening that in my city, I don't want to come in here now and actually go out because what's going to be around the corner? Now, I don't have, as you know, a Macam accent. And it has been frowned upon, I'll be honest with you, when I've been out and about. And I'm thinking, if that's somebody who's Scottish, what does it feel like to be somebody who's Bangladeshi, Eritrean, or Nigerian? It must be really difficult to be able to communicate and feel safe. And as a woman, a lot of our Nigerian students are finding it quite difficult here in Sunderland, and that's really sad. It shouldn't be happening. No, that's my feeling, and we are allowed to have personal feelings and beliefs on this. I used to work for the NRM, so I actually have worked with a lot of asylum seekers, a lot of people that have been trafficked or in modern-day slavery, and that is such a difficult thing to be, especially if you're a woman. So can I just say that I am supporting people and I am listening, because cohesion starts with the family. And if we start with families and we all get together, and as you've said, through food and chat and anything else that we want to do, music is very important, and dancing, then let's get together, because that's what we need to do. We need to be able to support each other, because we shouldn't just be standing alone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anthony, do you think that part of the tension and part of the reason that women in minority communities feel unsafe is because there is a kind of heightened language around, used by parties at national and sometimes local level, and based on misinformation? So, for example, Home Office figures tells me that for every 10,000 people in Sunderland, there are 30 asylum seekers. It's not a huge number, but there is a feeling abroad that perhaps it is a huge number. Do you think you've done enough as politicians to counter that misinformation?
I did ask the council some years ago to create a new web page, which was an immigration dashboard, and to publish live updates to the figures of immigrants, asylum seekers, etc. coming in, so that the facts are at people's fingertips, and the council never did publish it. I think if that evidence had been out there, it would inform the discussions that people have. But on the subject of misinformation or misunderstanding, I think there's a general point about the riots as well, and that is that there's a temptation for local politicians to project onto the riots the things that they want them to have been caused by. Northumbria police have told us that the majority of people they arrested did not have any ideological position. They didn't know what they were involved in. It was a hot day and they were drunk.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with any grand scheme, any grand project. They were the wrong people doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, led by a group of professional racists who had come from outside of Sunderland and whipped up people who should have known better but didn't. And they didn't get arrested because they know where the line is and not to cross it. The people who did cross the line and were throwing things at the police and pushing wheelie bins around were in a whipped up frenzy because they'd been day drinking all day. The ward that I represent, the current ward, Barnes, is the third most ethnically diverse in the city. It has in its north eastern corner, as you approach Chester Road towards the mosque, which isn't quite in the ward, but a lot of Bangladeshi families are, a very diverse population. And it also has, by no coincidence, quite a lot of antisocial behaviour and youth antisocial behaviour, where Bangladeshi families, but others as well, are targeted by young people who are going out smashing windows, taking drugs, using off-road bikes, being racist and so on. And part of the reason, and I will say that Alison is right, the new hubs are excellent, and the investigatory work that they have done has found that some of the reasons why minority communities are targeted is because the people who target them know that they don't speak English, have a fear of contacting the police, they aren't going to contact other social services, and so they're actually preying on the vulnerability of what they know about their victims. So the things that we can do as councillors with the new support that is in place is to actively step in and to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that there is a means of reporting which people feel comfortable with. So in that area we have new CCTV, we have new patrols going on. There are practical steps that can be taken to protect people if councillors are willing to put them in place.
Thank you. Elizabeth, what about the levels of community policing? I know that's something that your party has spoken about a lot in the past.
Absolutely, that community policing and some of the things that Anthony mentioned there latterly around CCTV, etc., are vitally important. But I'm not going to shy away from the fact that when you've got a very loud national voice which is blaming all of the ills on society, the fact you can't get a doctor's appointment, the fact that the A&Es are overrun, on immigration, you are going to cause hatred at a local level. And I'm more than prepared to stand by that. And when you've got teenagers who are spending hours and hours of their day on TikTok having those messages reinforced to them, you can't just say, oh, well, people were fueled by drink and that's it. That kind of ill feeling, I'm afraid, is endemic in society, and we have to address that. The policing side of it is kind of secondary in terms of how we manage this as a society. And the things that everybody spoke about, the first three speakers, around voluntary work and community cohesion at that very micro level, it is partly where this all starts. But we have to stop just accepting people with very powerful voices saying dreadful things.
But the issues have to be addressed. The issues that are causing a lot of problems in this country have to be addressed. You can't silence people.
If Nigel Farage managed to stop every boat coming to this country, which is the rhetoric, it would not make the changes that we need in society. It would not improve our healthcare to the level that people want it to be. It would not improve our education system to the level that people want it to be. It would not improve our health and social care to the level that people want it to be. It would not fix those problems. Let's start getting positive about fixing the real issues that affect people's lives and stop focusing on this ridiculous, demonic
Nobody's demonising it, but it is hard. It is hard to have relevant conversations, but we've got to be honest with the things that immigration does bring and the issues that immigration does bring. And when it all boils down to it, we have one vote in it, we have one voice in this area, and that's our vote. So let's see what happens after May.
And just to give you the last word again, Donna, for the women in communities who feel frightened, what would you say to them?
There has to be consequences. There has to be the police in there and the legislation that we have got that we can use to make sure that people that are frightened, or if issues do happen and crimes happen, they're prosecuted and they're dealt with. And please, come with us in the community. Let's talk about things. You tell us, the people in power, the things that are going to make you feel safe. We've got like CCTV, like better lighting when you go out. As a woman, you should be safe. This council is a city of sanctuary. It's a city of climate emergency. Let's make it a city that's safe for women.
That's a very good lead into our next question, which is going to come from Helen.
Good evening. What provision should there be for victims of domestic abuse who have multiple unmet needs and require support with their accommodation?
Thank you, Helen. We'll come on to a linked question about education and domestic abuse in a moment. But before we start this particular section of the debate, I'm going to give you a little bit more information. So domestic abuse and violence against women and girls are a significant concern here in Sunderland, with recorded incidents rising by just over 9%, 23-24. And a report from the Domestic Abuse and Violence Against Women Board told me that domestic abuse is the fourth most common reason for losing a settled home in Sunderland. So in other words, moving out of your home because of domestic abuse and violence. So, Alison, when you launched your safe accommodation and support for victims of domestic violence, you promised to ensure survivors and their children would have the right to high-quality refuge and support service. Are you confident that that is happening?
Yes, I am confident that that is progressing. There are long-term recovery requiring coordinated trauma-induced situations that women find themselves in. There is a partnership being developed across the city, a strategy called No More, and this for the end to domestic abuse and violence against women and girls. It's a 10-year project. It's only in its first year now, but immense work is being done with people like We Aside Women in Need and other groups, whereby people are working in partnership to ensure these families are looked after and they are housed and they're given all the support, the counselling and everything else that they need.
So if a woman shows up tomorrow who's taken the courageous decision to leave her home, can you guarantee her accommodation?
I would expect that they would be looked after, yes. That is what we are doing.
Fiona.
Thank you. From personal experience this afternoon, I've actually been out to see a lady who is in a similar situation. It isn't a child, but she has a support dog. And that support dog is just the same as a child to her. And she's finding it very difficult to get on with what's going on. She's on a Section 21, and that was caused because she had to move away from her marital home because of domestic violence. I have experienced with other residents issues, one in particular trying to move a woman with her 2 children, both autistic, into a safer accommodation. She was one of our social housing providers, and we ended up having to put CCTV up because the ex-partner came round with a machete. And that's the sort of thing that we're having to deal with. And that's scary. I had another lady who was a victim of county lines, and I asked the question in one of the homelessness boards to the director. I said, is there any children in hotel accommodation? And he said, no. Well, I knew otherwise because the woman and her 13-year-old son were in one of the travel lodges here in Sunderland. And that worries me because it's important that people have somewhere safe to go when they are seeking refuge. And they need the proper support and the proper counselling.
So if there is a substantial number of Green councillors come May, would you argue for more funds? Where would the funds come from? How could you make a difference to that situation?
For me, it'd be working with the partners that we have in our city with social housing, and there's plenty of them. And if we have to have somebody else that does that, we'll do that. Counselling, unfortunately, with talking therapies, the waiting list is horrendous, and I'm seeing more and more people suffering, and this is not just people with domestic violence issues or rape. I used to work for WAC, which is the Women's Health Advice Centre up in Ashington. And I know exactly what goes on and how difficult it can be for somebody to come forward and to talk, especially when they have to go to court and everything else that goes with it, with children, and children then get affected with what's going on. So it's a whole, I would say it's a gestalt way that you would have to look at somebody. You would have to look at everything. It's person-centred, and it's so important that we do that. And to be fair, Green councillors would be supporting, making sure that people have the right services. And yes, it may take more money, but it's important that we do support people.
Elizabeth. Have you a specific policy that would address the issue of accommodation for women who are victims of violence?
Well, specifically around accommodation, that has to be a multi-agency approach. And I think Alison referred to the No More strategy. Yeah. And those partners working together, because I think the real thing that we have to understand about women in these kinds of situations is there isn't one front door. Like, the women don't just know who to ring up when their whole life has been torn apart. So it's about all of those organisations working really closely together so that they can direct anybody coming to them through the right service channels to get the help that they need.
And what would be different if people elected a Liberal Democrat council to any other kind of council?
I mean, I think we are very thoughtful about the different situations that people find themselves in, and we know, don't we, that women from ethnic minorities and women with disabilities are disproportionately victims of domestic abuse. So it is very much about ensuring that our services are designed around those needs, and that we don't just take it as being one. It's not just women who are victims of domestic abuse, it's different kinds of women as well, and making sure the services are lined up around that.
Okay, thanks. Same question really, Anthony. If it was a predominantly Conservative-led authority, what difference would there be for women seeking refuge from violence?
One of the scrutiny committees that I sit on receives the corporate health report for the council. And in the last quarter report, one of the items that we have been updated on is the fact that people in temporary accommodation in the city are now on average in that temporary accommodation for more than 100 days, which if you were staying at somebody's house for 3 months, you would qualify as paying council tax there. You classed as living there, so that gives us a sense of how long people are in temporary accommodation. In preparation for this, I read the patchwork of provision report to look at what the council could do to fill in the gaps about where provision is currently lacking. And 46% of people who were surveyed as part of this report by the Domestic Violence Commissioner said that in the northeast they found it either very or quite difficult to access services, and the services that they find it difficult to access were 64% an advice helpline, 58% immigration advice, 47% wanted just an online chatbot to be able to access, 45% mental health counselling, and 39% additional safety measures in the property that they're staying in. These are all things that the council can step in and provide. There are lots of areas around here where, as others have said, we would be reliant, particularly for housing itself, on partners. But all of those things the council could and should do. It can recruit more councillors and provide it through the third sector. We have the hubs that have already been mentioned do go out to people's homes and make them more secure. We have the enabling services within the council, both online and through phone lines. We can easily expand what the council does to meet all of these things that people who have been surveyed as part of this said that they want. So I think that would be the difference a Conservative council would make. We would deliver all of them.
And is that an absolute commitment?
If you put us in power with that 38 councillors that you mentioned earlier, absolutely it is.
Donna.
To my shame, I didn't know about this 10-step, the stop now. Thank you. And I'm in the community. I work in the community, and I have a lot of friends that work in different community groups. So I rang round, and they don't know about it either. So I think what we have to do is, we're talking about this at crisis point. Let's take it back. Let's get Weyside Women in Need doing some education about about how to recognise the signs, how to approach someone about it. And if they do need help, let's get that help to them sooner, rather than having to get to crisis point. A lot of people I speak to said, well, yeah, we only get involved once the children are being threatened to take away, once social services are involved. Let's get the help to the women that need it before that happens. And that's going to take education of the community groups that we have an amazing amount of in this city. So that's where, to me, we need to be doing it before it gets to crisis point.
I just want to put one last point to you, which is I looked for a Reform UK policy on domestic violence. I couldn't find one. It might just be I looked in the wrong places. But I did come across Nigel Farage's comments in a podcast from not very long ago, saying Andrew Tate, who's once again being investigated for rape and sexual abuse, provides a voice for men who feel emasculated and lectured by a woke agenda. I wonder if, given the views of the leader of your party, could women be confident that if you're in control of the authority, the voices of women who are victims of violence will be heard and you will act?
I don't have to agree with Nigel Farage. If someone comes to me with a problem, I'm finding a solution.
He sets the tone, though, doesn't he?
I don't have to agree with him.
Okay, we're going to move on to another question, which is on a sort of similar theme, which is going to come from Nicole. I would just say to the panel that you're all speaking brilliantly, but we're running out of time. So if you could be brief, that would be fantastic. So, Nicole, where is Nicole?
Hi, I'm here.
Hello there.
My question is, given that many abusive behaviours start in teenage relationships, how can schools and youth groups be supported to educate young people on healthy relationships and recognise early signs of abusive behaviours?
And not surprisingly, I want to start with Donna, because we sort of jumped onto it in that last exchange. Obviously, calling out people like Andrew Tate.
Absolutely. I've worked with youth. We had a murder in Horton. Horrendous time, horrendous. And we knew we had to engage with our youth as quickly as possible. And I was shocked at some of the engagement between each other. Horrendous, very little respect. And some of the girls expected it. And to me, you have to get people in there who'll say, no, you don't have to accept that. Do you realise what you're saying there is really rude or inappropriate, or somebody that they trust? So just simple rules. So, by the way, you're absolutely right. All kids want is somewhere warm, somewhere safe with Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is life, especially to the young, to the thing. And we don't have enough of that. We really don't. It's just putting principles in that at 13, 14, 15, you don't always understand. It's about mutual respect, but telling people about that, showing them good behaviour, showing them how a relationship should be. AI, it's just common sense. And I'd love to see some young people that have got good morals and good understanding working with our young.
Thank you.
Yes, and that was something I read about the No More work, that it's about going into schools and into youth organisations and things, and I think we just can't stress that enough, the need to start at that level. And really getting into the minds of young people and having them think about the issues that affect them, but also how they can affect issues. So we have to empower young people really to take control of this agenda. It's no good us older people just saying, you have to be nicer to each other. We have to give them some power back and say, what does a good relationship look like? What does a good, respectful society look like? And as I say, give them the conch, really.
I think it starts with us understanding what's happening in society, because I'm quite alarmed by the fact that men who are younger than me, but not much younger than me, have got social views that nobody my age has, particularly to women. And they come from something that's increasingly being called the grift economy, which is to do with TikTok and other streaming services and all of these characters who are becoming minor celebrities online, and they're talking about women in derogatory terms. And if anyone has seen the Louis Theroux documentary recently, they defend their own mothers from this kind of abuse. And so why do they do it to other women? It's because there's the opportunity to make money and to become famous. And I think the platforms that young people are on now, all these streaming services, if you behave in a certain way and repeat certain behaviours, you're rewarded through that, both financially and in terms of a small amount of fame and following that you get from that. And so I think by understanding what is happening when young people are accessing these platforms, we can intervene to stop them by demonstrating what normal attitudes look like, but also pointing out that these people whose behaviour they're copying are actually manipulators who are using them for their own financial gain as well. It's quite a complex marketplace, but I think the more we understand it, the more we can close it down and stop it.
Thank you, Anthony. We are in agreement on a lot of this, but there's a huge amount of work gone on in Sunderland over the last 12 months in regard to this matter, and I just want to share with you, and a lot of this information and the work being done came out of the strategic framework that we prepared on advancing equality for women and girls through the 1 Million Women and Girls movement. What we know in Sunderland is that 27% of 13 to 17-year-olds say they've seen images or threats of sexual assault. Half of teens in a relationship suffer violence or controlling behaviour. 45% has a partner who constantly messages and checking up where they are. 27% are afraid to disagree with their partner. 20% have been pressured into sexual acts. 19% have been kicked or shoved. 17% have had intimate images of themselves shared online. These are young people, not right across our whole demographic. These are the young people in Sunderland telling us this.
Amanda, can I just briefly interrupt? Where do those numbers come from? Where did you get them from?
Out of our research, our council research that we've done.
Because they're quite horrifying, aren't they?
They are absolutely horrifying. We have delved into this quite deeply with our education department. 1 in 7 school staff in Sunderland have witnessed sexual harassment in the last 5 years, instigated by male pupils against female pupils and female staff. The current priorities within our education department and within the council are to ensure that young people's understanding of healthy relationships and personal safety is absolutely clear. Schools, support is being given to schools to deliver RSHE that teaches boundaries and consent. And the safeguarding training that is now given to all staff in schools, to governors, to anyone else involved in schools, involves a whole section on misogyny. The kind of things that are happening, some of which I found quite shocking. I'll give you an example of a teacher, a female teacher, who discovered this wasn't in Sunderland, but we obviously use it in the training. Her head had been put onto the body of something else, had been photoshopped online. It went right through the boys in the school. It was a naked body. This put her job at risk. It upset her family. It caused great distress in the school of how the boys were then treating her, having seen this. She was able to prove it wasn't her body because she actually has a tattoo that wasn't on the body, on the image. But her whole life could have been destroyed by somebody creating a fictitious thing and misogynistic behaviour. This training is happening in every school in Sunderland with staff, with governors, with everyone, so we can start and put a stop to this and teach people about healthy relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. Fiona.
Thank you. I actually am a school governor, and I am the link governor for personal development, so this is my area. And I really strongly support the things that we're doing in the school. So it's like year 5, year 6s, we really try and concentrate on coercive behaviour, because the problem to me is social media. And I think social media is great for lots of things, but unfortunately, when it goes into the hands of young children and teenagers, it can be twisted and manipulated. And I think, to be fair, it's something that we've been talking about, I would say, with all the groups and all the parties. It's important that children are really monitored in what they're watching and listening to. And that is a scary thing to me. We've just recently had a little bit of a trial with the year 5s, where we had no phones, no computers, no tablets, and we went back to the old methods of using books to research, and we had the children outside playing proper games. They loved it. They honestly really loved it. So maybe we're missing a trick here, I think, to be honest, when we're talking about education. Maybe we should be turning around and saying to children, you know, there's something else that you can do, and especially reading books is so important, because nowadays we're just getting kids to look at things on phones and using AI to then research and then put, I would say, essays and everything else together. Now, for me, as an actual ex-lecturer and a teacher, that is scary, because we don't know if children are actually doing the right thing. They're actually going on and doing the right thing. And there is a thing on a phone, when you go and look at something, it creates even more images and more likes on that and more shares. And if we stop that, we stop it at the heart. But we do need to educate children on what is good and what is bad. And I don't think we're doing enough of that, to be fair. And as a governor, the training I've gone through and the hoops I've had to go through, huge, but it needs to be there. I think it's so important that we do this for our children, because they are coming through. They are the future.
Thank you very much. I'm really conscious that we have some absolutely excellent speakers, and I don't want to stifle debate, but I want to get one last question in, because actually it was my favourite question of the night. Suzanne. Where's Suzanne?
Hi, thanks. I rely on public transport, as many girls and women across Sunderland do. And for many of us, it's our only transport choice about how we get to places and how we get home safely again. Given the buses have stopped by the time the last metro from Newcastle arrives in Sunderland, and there are no taxis to be found at the train station, how are women expected to get home safely after a night out? How can you ensure that women and girls are safe on the streets of Sunderland and on public transport?
What a great question. Thank you very much. Very practical. Just bear in mind, everybody, that transport is a shared responsibility with a combined authority. When it comes to transport coordination, Sunderland Council does have responsibility for licensing taxis, and it has other responsibilities around safety. So because we've got literally 5 minutes left, I would like 30 seconds, please, from each of you on one thing that you would do to make sure that a girls' night out can be a lot safer in the future. Donna.
Right, 30 seconds is quick. The statistics go from daytime being 70% safe, women feel, down to nighttime just over 30%, which is a huge difference. So we need extra lighting, we need buses with cameras, we need CCTV, and we need consequences for people that abuse women on the way back.
I'm going to agree with everything Donna said there, and I think more investment in CCTV is necessary in Sunderland, and I think our colleagues here are calling for that right now. So,
fabulous. Anthony?
The council can actually fund its own bus services. It does for Nissan workers, where there's a gap in the market where it's not deemed to be commercially viable. The council can actually put its own money in for reasons other than profit. So I think to actually put on nighttime bus services is vital. And I would also say that that will have to be something it thinks about when the Metro extends through Washington, because it's only going to go through the edge of Washington and not serve all of Washington. There will have to be a new transport hub with buses for people to get to those Metro stops and back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nationally, the new guidelines that came out in March this year on designing safer streets for women and girls, which we would fully subscribe to. But what I will point out is that our CCTV has been going through an upgrade for a considerable time now. We are going to replace CCTV right across the city incrementally. It's been trialled in the Keele Square area, across the new footbridge, around the Stadium of Light. The stadium is using it for crowd control, and it's all AI use. So it's an immediate reaction. The current CCTV cameras in most areas have film that someone has to go download, look at, scroll through. The new system that we are currently installing is AI enhanced, which gives immediate response. So if a child gets lost on the footbridge, the police can say, child in a red coat, the cameras can pick them out straight away. Woman not safe or looking not safe in the street, police are alerted immediately. That's already in place in some areas and will be rolled out right across the city in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, I was brought up in Edinburgh where we did have a night bus service and it was brilliant. I never, ever, ever felt unsafe. And I think it's really important. I was on ITA at one point a very long time ago when it was actually councillors and not the mayor that was dealing with it. And we've always asked to make sure that there is enough taxis, reasonably priced taxis, which is, I think, something that we need to be talking about for people in the nighttime economies as well. So some people are actually working in Newcastle, getting the last metro home, and then finding themselves quite unsafe. So I think night bus services are a very big must, and I would propose them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right, so there's one last task for you tonight. You heard at the beginning that you were going to be asked if you are successful or if your party is successful, if you would sign up to the Million Women and Girls Pledge, which is on the screens in front of you. I know some people have already done it, but I would like a quick yes or no from each of you, please. Donna.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have done.
Already have done.
I think I have done before, but I will be doing it definitely, yes.
Please double check. Thank you very much. So, all that remains really in my last 30 seconds is to thank you for coming and putting great questions. Thanks to some fantastic candidates. Done so much homework and it's really appreciated. So thank you very much indeed. And I want to leave you with one fact, which I found out today and I thought, this is brilliant to have found this out today. So on this day in 1868, the Manchester National Society for Women's Suffrage held a meeting at the Free Trade Hall, which is widely considered to be the start of the organised women's suffrage campaign in Britain. So if that doesn't persuade you that you've come to the right place to persuade you to go out and vote on May the 7th, however you vote, remember you're in a long tradition of making sure your voices are heard, stretching back all the way to 1868. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for your attention and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to our wonderful chair, Jackie, for steering us through all these important issues. Thank you to all the candidates for taking the time. I know it's a very busy time for you, so thank you for coming, and thank you for all your homework, as Jackie said. Thank you to all of you who asked questions or submitted questions, for sharing your insights and local knowledge. And most importantly, thank you to all of you, our fantastic audience. Thanks for coming. Get home safe.